Re-Zero, Volume 5, Chapter 4, Part 2, On the Periphery of Madness. Rem bowed and conveyed her deepest gratitude. "You have gone through great trouble for us. On behalf of my master, I thank you for your benevolence until this day." Crusch and Ferris stood before her. Rem and the others were meeting in the Crusch Villa's reception hall. In other words, Rem was bidding them farewell. "I'm sorry we could be of no help. By rights, it is presumptuous to receive compensation for such a thing." Seeing Crusch's eyes fall slightly, Rem lifted her face and firmly replied, "Not at all. Ending our request before it was finished is due to our own circumstances. You have given us your utmost consideration until now, Lady Crusch. It is only right that we pay compensation as promised." Receiving her reply, Crusch made one final apology. "I am sorry." She would say nothing more. With his master's lips closed, Ferris followed up. "To be honest, it does leave things half done, but it can't be helped, meow. Rem, be in good health. As for Subaru, get well soon, is what fairies should probably say." With one eye closed and one finger raised, Ferris indicated Subaru standing behind Rem, leaning against the door in a slovenly state. His condition had not improved. His reactions were as dull as before, with his consciousness stranded somewhere between dream and reality. In spite of that, he followed like a child when they led him around by the hand, and he could at least manage not to fall over, though he still suddenly broke into little fits of laughter and tears from time to time. Rem replied, "My words are insufficient to apologize for the rudeness caused by a member of our house. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for treating him with benevolence." Crusch replied, "We had a contract, and at the very least, I have exchanged words with him. I could never treat him in an uncouth manner. I believe things will be difficult from here, however." Rem glanced at the faintly smiling Subaru, grasping the hem of her apron in a display of resolve. "I am prepared for that." Just as Crusch had gloomily pointed out, she knew there were many hardships to come. Even so, Rem had appointed herself to be the one who would walk with Subaru through thick and thin. After all, she'd never forgotten what he had said to her long ago. "So let's laugh, hug each other, and talk about tomorrow. I've always dreamed of laughing with a demon and talking about the future anyway." She'd remembered that scene in her head many times, tens of times, hundreds of times over. That was why she could give Subaru no less than what he had given to her. What she had received was too precious for any sum of money to ever repay. Crusch lowered her eyes and shook her head. "I regret that I was unable to fulfill your request. It is all because of our shortcomings. Though this chapter has reached an unfortunate result, I pray that you will do many great things, now and in the future, Lady Crusch. And you as well. Tell Amelia, let us both fight and bring no disgrace to our souls." With that exchange, Rem keenly felt that her duty in that place had come to an end. Subaru's treatment had been abandoned before it was over, and she wasn't able to fulfill Roswell's secret command. She would no doubt be sternly scolded for scurrying back. Even so, she had to return to the mansion, for Subaru's sake. "Fairy understands you're returning to the mansion, but do you have any leads for treatment?" Rem held back the regret in her voice and replied to Ferris's question with her single ray of hope. "At the very least, if he can meet Lady Amelia." No matter how much she spoke to him, how much she touched him, how much she continued in vain, the boy never responded to Rem with his usual Subaru-like reactions. But even in this state, Sometimes words rich with meaning would tumble out of Subaru's mouth. Names. Hmm? From time to time, he says names. My name, sisters, and she was happy that her own name was among those he whispered. On the other hand, the fact that he didn't respond when she called his name made her sad. Though much of his behavior was meaningless, the name he murmured with the most frequency was Lady Amelia's. If he is able to meet her, perhaps it would change him somehow. But Fairy heard they parted on really bad terms. It hasn't even been 4 days since then. Is that enough time for her to calm down, Meow? If you could wait a little longer. You really can't, huh? I'm well aware that Lady Amelia has a poor understanding of her own heart. However, this is no longer something I can decide on my own. I must return and receive instructions. Rem's words, full of concern for her lord and master, were for the purpose of deceiving her own heart. She was hiding what she truly desired, wearing it under her duties as a servant. After all, it pained her to the point of tears that she was not enough to save his heart and mind. Abruptly, Crush lifted her face and narrowed her eyes. Wilhelm has arrived. Following Crush's gaze, Rem saw that a dragon carriage was entering the courtyard of the villa from the iron gates. A familiar aged gentleman was sitting in the driver's seat. Crush continued. At the moment, this is the only long-distance dragon carriage that my house is able to lend. I cannot reveal the details, but a large number of these vehicles have been required for another matter of late. Harris followed up. You're in luck, Meow. If you head along the Lippus Highway, you should get back to your mansion before tomorrow. It might take you half a day's travel, give or take. Rem, watching the dragon carriage's arrival, thought the rays of the sun high above were dazzling indeed. Since it was around noon now, an all-out carriage ride would mean arriving back at the mansion around midnight. If they were close to the manor, her shared consciousness with Ram would no doubt inform her sister of their return. Thank you very much for your kind-heartedness, Crush replied, without a single hint of false pleasantries. I do not mind. It is still a far cry from what I would normally be able to provide, so I can only hope that this modest offering nonetheless accommodates your needs. Rem thought that getting to know Crush as a person might have been one of the few happy things she'd gained from the time she'd spent there. Then this time I must excuse myself. As Rem was stating her final farewell, Crush interrupted her. Rem. When Rem stopped, she saw decision in Crush's eyes for the very first time. The Duchess continued. This is extremely inelegant of me, but there is something I wish to ask. Yes, what is it? Why do you strive for Subaru so? Watching Rem and the boy leaning against her, emotion vanished from Crush's amber eyes. She continued. The relationship between you and Subaru is not the master-retainer relationship Ferris and I share. I simply find it distasteful to judge men and women by appearances alone. With Rem falling into silence, the tone of Crush's voice dropped, as if she was apologizing for her own lack of clarity. I do not mind if you do not wish to answer. I am embarrassed to even ask. Ferris silently watched her master as Rem shook her head at both of them. No, I am not hesitating to answer. I am simply unsure about what words I should use. It's a difficult thing to explain. When she was on the verge of putting it into words, she felt it change into something else entirely. It was natural for Crush to have doubts. What existed inside Rem didn't stay the same for even a second. Its size, strength, and heat shifted from moment to moment, but putting down its roots inside Rem. She didn't want to come out and say it. She couldn't come out and say it. How, then, to describe something formless inside Rem to another person? I suppose it is because Subaru is special. Rem didn't really understand if that qualified an answer or not. However, she felt like that response best exemplified what was at the bottom of her own heart. Did something happen to both of you? As she supported Subaru, putting a hand to her chest, she inclined her head at the lack of a reaction. When she looked, both Crush and Ferris were standing there, gaping with somewhat surprised expressions. Rem had a gnawing feeling that their reactions might indicate she'd said something rude. Master and servant traded gazes, nodding to each other. I'm sorry. I'm somewhat astounded at what I was doing. No. It was unavoidable. Perry was surprised, too. Like, Rem, you weren't even there for the talks at the royal palace. Rem didn't really understand what they were saying. However, Crush seemed satisfied with the reply as she stated, I apologize for my impolite and unrefined question. I'm very sorry. Subrunatsky is a lucky man. Crush was smiling a little. Ferris followed up teasingly. He really is. If he ever gets his senses back, Fairy has to tease him about it. Meow. They had conveyed, by fairly undiplomatic means, that they wished for Subaru's recovery. So Rem gave them a small smile rich in gratitude. The two sent her off. Be in good health. Good luck, meow. Rem gave them both one deep, final bow before leading Subaru by the hand out of the Crush villa. Wilhelm, waiting at the gates, greeted her with a nod as he offered her the reins. She accepted them, bowing to the aged gentleman in return. You have also been exceptionally benevolent to us, Master Wilhelm. Not at all. Words wasted on these old bones. Besides, I feel as powerless as my master. It never occurred to me to do something before this happened. Wilhelm narrowed his eyes as he watched Subaru, his pupils filled with complex emotions. Now that Rem thought about it, the old man was probably the person at the Crush villa who'd had the most contact with Subaru. Though it had only been for a mere 4 days, one might say that the sword training had given the two a relationship as master and pupil. Perhaps Wilhelm felt regret that he could not save Subaru either. He commented, It would seem I have indeed not advanced a single step since that time. Wilhelm murmured to himself, apparently gazing through Subaru at something off in the distance. Master Wilhelm? When Rem called out to the older man, he blinked and shook his head. Pardon me. There is nothing I can do, but I shall at least pray for Sir Subaru's convalescence. Miss Rem, take due care while traveling that path. Rem did her best to ignore the faint, fleeting anxiety in that aged gentleman's eyes at the end. Thank you very much. Be in good health, Master Wilhelm. Even at the best of times, Rem was more awkward than other people. She could only reach out with both hands and do one thing at a time. And now she decided just what her hands would support. Subaru, this way. Supporting his wobbly body, she hoisted Subaru up from behind and sat him in the driver's seat. Rem took her place beside him, accepting Subaru's presence atop the cramped-feeling seat. She sat right up against him, wrapping her left arm around his hip and firmly grasping the reins with her right hand. It might be a little cramped, but please bear with it. He would have to race in this posture for a long, long time. Rem was worried about the strain on Subaru, but she would also need to protect him after they arrived back at the mansion. Roswell and the others were unlikely to give him a warm welcome. If Subaru would be without other allies, Rem had to be the one he could count on. Because I will always be by your side, Subaru. Always. Rem, deeply hardening a resolve, snapped the reins, and the land dragon began to race along the ground. As the mansion receded behind them, the elderly gentleman watched them go. Slowly, the carriage's wheels gradually turned faster and faster. Rem felt the sensation through the reins as if the wheels themselves were expressing the state of her heart.